It's no wonder athletes can be incredibly superstitious. The difference between winning a game or a medal can mean the difference between a giant sum of money in endorsements versus getting little or nothing in return for all the hard work they put in. So why not try anything to add to their success? You would think Michael Jordan wouldn't have needed luck, but he helped popularize longer basketball shorts because he would wear his old college shorts from North Carolina for good luck underneath. I even heard from some listeners about their favorite superstitions regarding sports. Dan Brenic from the Netflix and Swill podcast has mentioned he grows a playoff beard. And listener Jarrod Taylor says whenever he's watching a game with his favorite team, if they start losing, he'll change the channel. And if they start coming back, he won't watch the rest of the game. Even my husband is a complete skeptic, unless it comes to hockey and his beloved New York Rangers. Every year around playoffs, he puts away his razor and grows his annual playoff beard. And when he played hockey growing up, he told me he would put his pads and uniform on in the same order every time. Again, this is the guy who's a complete skeptic. For the month of March, I'll be looking at the stories behind common superstitions and symbols of luck. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind sports superstitions. But first, a quick message. If you're listening to this, you know how awesome you are for listening to podcasts, right? You get to be that friend who starts sentences with, "Hey, I heard on a podcast." 1 out of 5 people listen to podcasts every month. That means while you're the cool one, 4 of your friends, well, aren't as cool as you. But you have the power to help them. Be a good friend and suggest a podcast. For the month of March, hundreds of podcasts from NPR, StuffYouShouldKnow.com, and indie podcasts alike are putting out a challenge to listeners to introduce their friends to podcasts. And as much as I'd love it if you recommended the story behind, it might not be up everyone's alley. But there are plenty of shows to choose from. Whatever you decide to suggest to your friends, tweet about it using the hashtag Trypod. That's TRYPOD, as in try a podcast. I'll be using the hashtag all month to talk about some of my favorites as well. Baseball seems to be one of the most superstitious of sports. Once when I was watching a baseball game, I noticed the pitcher was pitching a no-hitter, and I casually asked about it, to which I was yelled at for even mentioning it. Apparently, if a no-hitter or perfect game is in progress, it's bad luck to say it out loud. Even announcers seem to abide by this unwritten rule. Pitchers even sit by themselves between innings to avoid anyone talking to them or bringing the no-hitter to their attention. There are a number of famous lucky charms used by baseball players throughout the years, like Hank Aaron wearing the same pair of shoes when he took a shower, or Charlie Kerfeld wearing a Jetsons t-shirt under his uniform. Don Mattingly even carried a packet of sugar in his back pocket. Pitcher Turk Wendell, though, who played for the Cubs, Mets, and Phillies, was considered by many to be one of the most superstitious of players. He had traditions such as running from the hotel to the stadium, not wearing white socks or letting his skin show on his ankles, wearing 2 watches, chewing exactly 3 pieces of licorice when pitching, brushing his teeth after every inning, and when he got the ball, he would go behind the mound and cross himself 3 times, draw 3 crosses in the dirt, and wave to the second baseman and center fielder before finally pitching. Unfortunately, none of these superstitions ever led to a championship for him. And before the 2004 sweep of the Cardinals, one of the most famous curses in baseball came from when Babe Ruth was traded to the New York Yankees, cursing the Boston Red Sox for 86 years, known as the Curse of the Bambino. Despite that curse being broken, it was even bigger news when in 2016, the Chicago Cubs finally managed to beat the curse brought on when William Cianis, owner of a local tavern, bought tickets for himself and his goat, Murphy, to Game 4 of the Cubs World Series against the Detroit Tigers in 1954. When fans complained of the smell from Murphy, Cianis shouted on his way out,
"Them Cubs, they ain't gonna win no more!"
Cianis even sent Philip K. Wrigley a telegram after the game that said,
"You are never gonna win a World Series again because you insulted my goat!"
But no team is considered as cursed as the next team we're going to talk about. In the 1950s, the Cleveland Indians were considered a team to be reckoned with. But when they started off the 1958 season poorly, manager Bobby Bragan was fired and was supposedly so angry he cursed the team from second base, saying they'd never win another American League pennant. Bragan has since denied placing this curse, which no one took seriously, until a few years had passed and the Indians hadn't come close to the success they previously had. Management has even brought in spiritual advisors and exorcists to lift the curse. And the curse continues even though the Indians have since gotten a new stadium. Some even say the curse on the team is because of the racially insensitive name and especially Chief Wahoo, the face of the team's mascot. First appearing on uniforms in 1951, the smiling face is said to remind people of caricatures of blacks during the Jim Crow era, used to reflect and popularize stereotypes of groups of people. Countless protests and campaigns have tried to change the mascot, but for most fans, Chief Wahoo isn't seen as racist, but a familiar and friendly face of the team they love. One of the most popular theories about why the Cleveland Indians were cursed was said to be similar to the Red Sox curse of the Bambino. When Rocky Colavito learned he was being traded to Detroit in 1960, he said he felt like a dead man walking. Many blamed that trade for the Indians' bad luck in the following years, but Colavito has since said he loves Cleveland and the Indians and would never have put a curse on them. He was even traded back in 1965, but by that point, he was nearing the end of his career and wasn't playing as well as he was before being traded the first time. Let's move on from curses and onto some of the good luck charms associated with sports. Since I live in a hockey house, I had to do a bit of research to find out about the good luck charms earlier in the episode regarding baseball players. But one good luck charm I was familiar with was the Detroit Red Wings fans' tradition of throwing an octopus onto the ice. The weird tradition began in 1952 when seafood merchants Pete and Jerry Cusimano threw one out, thinking the 8 legs would make for 8 victories during the Stanley Cup playoffs, back when there were only 6 teams and 8 wins were needed to win the cup. It only takes one weird coincidence to create a tradition, and when the Red Wings swept the series, the octopus continued on. In 1995, a 38-pound octopus was thrown on the ice during the playoffs, and the next year it was a 50-pound octopus. Both times, these large octopodes were displayed on the Zamboni between periods. Off topic, both octopuses and octopodes are correct as the plural version of octopus. Octopi, however, is not. You would think the Red Wings would have maybe tried to incorporate an octopus as their mascot, or maybe as part of their logo, since the origin of mascots in sports has to do with luck as well. They're said to bring good luck, and the word mascot comes from the French meaning sorcerer's charm, and its Latin root, masca, refers to mask, specter, or witch. The role of William Siennis was played by Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting. Information for this episode was sourced from MLB.com, BleacherReport.com, CNN.com, and more links which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StoryBehindPod, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.